I want to ask the minister, does it lie within her bosom to decide whether a financial burden overweighs a international interest, or international interest overweighs a financial burden? Or the people of Ghana deserve to know how much is costing the taxpayer of this country for us to discharge this our diplomatic responsibility to fellow African countries. It's important that the Ghanaian taxpayer must know. So I want him, the Honorable Minister, I want her to be able to look at the question once again and see whether she can provide for us how much it costs us as a country to do these things for our fellow neighbors.
Yes, leader. Minister, hold on. The leader is on his feet, sir.
Speaker, I want to employ my colleague to revert his mind to Order 67. Speaker, he should revert his mind to Order 67(1)(c). No question, Speaker, with your permit. No question shall be asked which raises an issue already decided or which has been answered substantially during the current session. Speaker, clearly that question has been answered substantially by the Honourable Minister, except to say my colleague was not listening. So the answer has been provided. My colleague is completely out of order. An issue, if he has another question, he should rather come with another question. This particular question has been answered.
Yes, in fact, the minister answered that question from the questioner himself. And he said that the cost is borne by, is not part of her ministry's budget, and that it is by the Ministry of Defense. And so, Ghana Air Force, is that right? I think he said Ghana Air Force, which is part of the Ministry of Defense. So, I'll move on. Yes, Akufo-Addo, sir.
Thank you, Right Honorable Speaker. May I know from the Minister if the request for these services were channeled through his ministry, her ministry, given the fact that the requests are coming from foreign heads of states, and if she can give us a fair idea as to the number of trips that has been embarked on this fact. Thank you.
Honourable Minister, you only ask whether it passes through your ministry. The other part has been answered.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, yes, some of the requests could pass through my ministry. And I give the example of the last meeting where 3 heads of state had to be picked up from their respective countries to Ghana for an emergency meeting. The time was very short, and they had to be part of the meeting because these are countries that border the Republic of Guinea, and therefore those heads of state had to be here. So they made their difficulties known, and we had to work on it. But apart from that, I don't have readily any other trips which have been routed through my ministry. But this recent one, because it had to do with a summit, an emergency summit, I knew of the difficulties, and I then had to relay the messages to the appropriate quarters, which is the Chief of Staff's office, and also the Minister for National Security, as well as the Minister for Defense, who has the presidential jet as part of his responsibility, the operations of it. So that's what I can say regarding the question by the honourable member. Thank you.
Yes, Honourable Member for.
Speaker, thank you for the opportunity. Speaker, on the 18th of September this year, the record will show that whilst our president had travel commitments to the UN, national carrier was then in use by the Liberian president. So my question is, what is our national policy when a travel request from a sister state coincides with the travel commitments of the sitting president?
Like in this case,
like it happened on the 18th, when the president, because the carrier was used by another president, he had to charter. I just want to know the policy in that regard. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Minister, I don't know, I'm not sure if I understood her, but please allow her to clarify something.
Mr. Speaker, if a request which does not happen often at all clashes with the president's travel, of course, the president, this is for the use, the jet is for the use of the president, and therefore the president will use the jet and decline the request that has been made. I'm not aware of this particular situation of the 18th of September. I'm sorry, Mr. Speaker, but it did not pass through my ministry, so I'm not aware of it.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to find out from the Honourable Minister that these foreign presidents who use the presidential jets, have they on any occasion complained to her that the jet do not have the adequate facilities that can make them comfortable when they travel in the air?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I do not have direct contact all the time with heads of state for them to be able to engage me on such matters.
Very well. There's one more question in the name of the Honorable Member for Southton for the Minister. Yes,
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to ask the Minister for Foreign Affairs and Regional Integration whether the ministry is aware that Ghanaian passports are in the hands of foreign citizens, especially brothers and sisters from Nigeria in the United Arab Emirates. And the steps the ministry is taking to probe and immediately correct the situation, as it is creating problems for the Ghanaian citizens in the UAE. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Right, Honorable Speaker. The issue concerning foreigners acquiring Ghanaian passports has been a long-standing problem for the country. The problem has been largely attributed to the ease with which one can acquire the Ghanaian birth certificate, which serves as the key requirement for acquiring a passport. Mr. Speaker, as part of the efforts to tackle this menace, my ministry migrated to the biometric passport regime in the year 2010. The new system, which involves taking fingerprints of applicants, has largely minimized the acquisition of Ghanaian passports by foreigners. Indeed, the current process for acquiring Ghanaian passports entails very rigorous vetting process by a team of security personnel from Ghana Immigration Service, National Security Council Secretariat, National Investigation Bureau, Criminal Investigation Department, and Research Department. With this arrangement, the ministry is able to detect and weed out cases of foreigners attempting to acquire our passports. Indeed, the vetting process has led to the arrests and prosecution of a number of culprits engaged in this criminal conduct. I wish to use this opportunity to thank Ghana Immigration Service and other security services for assisting my ministry in this regard. Mr. Speaker, on the specific allegation of foreign nationals in the United Arab Emirates holding Ghanaian passports I wish to assure the House that our diplomatic mission accredited to that country has been directed to liaise with the host authorities to investigate and submit a report on the matter for appropriate action. This is the only action we can take in the first instance, as the relevant institutions in the host country are mandated to investigate the allegations. Any necessary corrective action will follow as required. Mr. Speaker, the Ministry remains committed towards safeguarding the security and integrity of our passports, and every necessary measure will be taken to adhere to that. It is against this background that the Ministry is currently taking steps to introduce the chip-embedded passports by the second quarter of next year, 2022. It is part of the efforts to enhance the security of the passports in line with the standards prescribed by the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO. Let me also inform the House that the Ministry is working closely with the National Identification Authority to integrate the Ghana card into the passport acquisition system. The move will enhance verification of passport application and hence enable the Ministry to effectively address the issue of foreigners trying to acquire our passports. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, from the first paragraph of the Minister, she acknowledged the fact that let me quote her words, that the problem has been largely attributed to the ease with which one can acquire the Ghanaian birth certificate, which serves as a key requirement for acquiring a passport. Mr. Speaker, my question to the Minister is, having known this, is there any collaboration, ministerial collaboration or interagency collaboration to assist the birth and death registry to enable them render services and also to check some of this from happening in the first place, since that seems to be one of the major causes as identified by the answer given? Between your ministry and the ministry under which birth and death is, if there is any effective collaboration, support, helping them build the capacity.
Wait, cut the commentary. She'll answer. Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Yes, there is collaboration, and even more so now as a result of the national identification card. And therefore, it's now easy for us to verify a birth certificate, which is now in biometric form as well. And so that in itself has weeded out a lot of these foreign nationals who ordinarily can acquire a birth certificate. And so today, I believe that because of the close collaboration that exists, and also the fact that many Ghanaians now have the national identification card, it is a lot better in terms of the numbers that we see. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, again, the paragraph 2 contains the support, the rigorous check that these institutions help to apprehend culprits. And if I may quote your portion of the second paragraph, you said, indeed, the current process for acquiring Ghanaian passport entails very rigorous vetting process by a team of security personnel, as you have outlined there. From the time of application and when one is expected to get his passport, from the time of applying for the passport and the time to get the passport, probably the duration. Will you consider that to be enough, considering the kind of work these institutions do, to have been doing a thorough work to ensure that nothing slips, that they are able to really find out the fraud that is so key and dear to all of us? Are they well support in terms of capacity to be able to, even though you have outlined some successes in terms of arrest. But looking at the time of our putting in application and when we expect to get our passport, do they have the required capacity to be able to do all of that and apprehend such people?
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I must say that vetting takes place in two forms. The vetting that takes place when an online application is deposited. A lot takes place then because the background checks are done behind the scenes without having the applicant before the officers. And then when the applicant then has an appointment to appear for biometric taking of the fingerprints and also going through the different processes, all these face-to-face interactions happen. And in many of the cases, we have detected false applications either through our background checks behind the scenes or in the face-to-face interaction between the officers from the various MDAs and applicants. And so this is done in twofold, behind the scenes and then face-to-face. And it has worked and continues to work. Thank you.
Yes, Honorable Yomi, any supplementary question?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to know, again, the effort to introduce the chip-embedded passport as one of the ways to solve this problem. Will the minister walk us through how effective, when this is introduced next year, per your answer? Because we heard about this somewhere, I think, from your predecessor in 2016, that government intended to introduce this, and we've not really seen that happening. Good, 2022 is going to be done. Can you walk us through how effective this, when finally introduced, will help prevent this from maybe occurring?
Honorable, is that a supplementary question? Honorable Ayumi, to ask the minister to walk you through, is there a supplementary question or? Minister, are you minded to answer the question?
Mr. Speaker, if I may add a little to just clarify what I wanted to request you to give us. Give us further, better clarification on how effective this chip-embedded passport will be in solving the problem. Since that has been acknowledged as one of the ways to solve it.
Very well, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, unfortunately, I'm not technically able to take you through the process, but all I can assure you, as I have been assured, as is happening in other countries, even within West Africa, some countries are using chip embedded, and it has reduced a lot of fraudulent applications and so on, because your details are embedded in a chip and it is easily accessible. And the processes, together with that of the national identification card, will ensure the integrity of our passports. So that's what I can say. But, Mr. Speaker, if the honourable member is minded to ask that specific question as a substantive one, I will come to the House with the necessary details to give the House. Thank you.
Very well. Yes, Honorable Member for
Adaku.
Yeah,
we thank the Minister for providing answers to this question, and I commend her for the steps we are taking to make the Ghanaian passport more secure. In her answer, she suggested that applicants have been, or fake applicants have been detected and taken out of the system. Is it, in your opinion, that the problem is one-sided, that is only applicants, or do you also notice that some officials could also condone, because in the past we know when you get fake passport, fake driving license, it is not merely the applicants doing that. You need a collaboration from other people to do that. Do you detect that there will be work to be done on your side as well to make sure that we can make the passports more secure than they are currently? Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, Honorable Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in every human endeavor, you will find people who go against the grain, who do what they're not supposed to do. But I must insist that the officers there do their best, and I cannot vouch for them 100%, but I know for sure that they give of their best. And what I've done, Mr. Speaker, is to move them every 6 months so that officers don't stay there for too long and get familiar with the system. But I must draw attention to the activities of those we call Goro boys, the middlemen. And we have found that in many of the cases, they are the ones who are aiding and abetting such applicants who really shouldn't even come anywhere close to any of our national documents, whether it's birth certificate or passports or any others. So that's what I can say. But we continue to improve on the system to make sure that the people there have enough integrity to do their work. Thank you.
Yes, let me come to member for Busa South.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the minister has made several references to people who try to obtain Ghanaian passports with fake or fictitious documents. I want to know from the minister if there are any prescribed sanctions for such persons if and when discovered.
Yes, Minister.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, we put them before the courts and they are sentenced. And there are many of them in Ghanaian jails. Thank you, sir.
Honorable Madu, you want to ask question? And that's the last question I'm admitting.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, for giving me the opportunity. I would like to find out from the minister. In her answer, she mentioned that there is a chip that contains data of various people in terms to that is a way of being effective. I would like to know how protective is those data, because when you look at Data Protection Act, how protective, how secure is those data?
Honorable, may you repeat the question, please?
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. My question to the minister is, they are collecting data of individuals in a chip which is embedded in the passport. I would like to find out from her how protective or secure that data is vis-a-vis in consonant with the Data Protection Act.
Minister, I don't know whether you got the question. You wanted to know how protective the chip.
Mr. Speaker, I don't believe this is a question for me, because first of all, we have not started the chip-embedded regime. Secondly, matters to do with data protection, I believe, are under the purview of the Ministry of Communications. And so she may be able to answer that question, a substantive question put to her better than I can. And of course, as and when we start, I probably will be able to shed more light on this question. But for now, we haven't started. We don't run the chip-embedded regime yet. And so issues to do with data protection, I cannot speak to. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Minister. On behalf of the House, let me thank you very much for attending upon the House to answer questions. We are so grateful, and you are hereby discharged. Let me now invite
Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to The Pulse. We're coming to you live from our studios in Kokomlimle on your digital terrestrial TV, because we're free to air on DSTV channel 421 and Go TV channel 144. This afternoon, Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu serves notice he will challenge the ruling of the First Deputy Speaker dismissing his motion of rescission on the 2022 budget. Meanwhile, minority in Parliament to push for a probe into the conduct of the First Deputy Speaker, which it says led to the chaotic scenes in the chamber last Wednesday after he called for sanctions against them.
I don't know. On the floor, some people have behaved what I will call unruly. I'll call unparliamentary. But when it comes to tensions, I don't see that. When we leave there, we'll discuss those things.
And the root cause of the problem is the attitude and the conduct and the misconduct of the speaker.
Okay.
Is the committee going to deal with the Mr. Speaker? So what problem are they going to solve? So I'm saying that we may as well go and talk plenty in the same hypocritical things that we do and refuse to address the core issue. Tomorrow it will come back. If we have a speaker who comes back and a speaker who sits there and does this same kind of thing, there'll be trouble in the house.
We're live in Parliament for an update of business of the House. Also in this bulletin, mixed reactions by motorists to 15 pesos reduction at the Guel fuel pumps. We hear from some of them who say the reduction is insignificant.
Pesos. No, what is right? Anyone for that? Well, it would have been better if the price of fuel hadn't been reduced. The government is just toying with us.
We'll find out if the 15 pesos reduction will resolve the problem at hand. Meanwhile, the National Petroleum Authority is warning against calls by road transport operators for the scrapping of some taxes, saying it will have dire consequences for the economy.
We need to be careful, okay? The demands that we make, we also must be minded by the possible consequences.
Teacher Union, CCT, and NAGRA debunked claims of fraud in the one teacher, one laptop deal. This afternoon, the unions have been stating their position on the matter.
What money was used to finance this is the professional development allowance. Now, this appeal that we are making, look, we are unions. We even wish government to say, looking at the situation, we have decided to absorb 100% of the cost, and we'll be very happy.
We'll be probing further shortly with the president of NAGRAT. My name is Aisha Ibrahim. The Pulse is brought to you by Global Communities, Ignilu, Affordable Safe Sanitation. Remember, we're also streaming live on YouTube and all our social media handles. Joy News on TV. Tweet at us with the hashtag The Pulse. My personal handle is @Nana Aisha. Always a pleasure to host you. We begin from Parliament, where Minority Leader Haruna Idrisu has served notice he will challenge the ruling of the First Deputy Speaker dismissing his motion of rescission on the 2022 budget. Joseph Osei-Wusu, at the start of today's proceedings, insisted that he gave a ruling during last Wednesday's parliamentary proceedings which were characterized by chaos. According to the First Deputy Speaker, he gave the ruling and proceeded to ask the table of office to amend the votes and proceedings to reflect events of that day. But that was challenged by the minority leader, who insisted that Jose Wuso did not rule on the motion and therefore charged him to put the motion to a vote. Let's speak to my colleague, Kwesi Parker-Wilson, who has been in Parliament for us. Parker, bring us up to speed on happenings on the floor of Parliament.
Aisha, I have been reliably informed by the minority that this motion is only not to challenge the ruling of the First Deputy Speaker, but also to question his conduct. They believe that his conduct is quite unparliamentary. What he has done is sort of undermining the rules and procedures of Parliament. And anybody who has a better understanding or appreciation of Parliament knows that Parliament is guided by the standing orders, and the speakers derive their authority and their powers from the standing orders. So any breach amounts to undermining the standing order. So that is what they are going to do. In fact, as I speak to you, the minority chief whip and the minority leader himself are not in the chamber. They have moved out to go and finalize on the motion because they are not happy with the decision. Again, we are told that the appropriation or the estimate for the budget will be done tomorrow, will commence tomorrow. The minority has a different view because they believe that they will be successful with this motion. And what it means is that if they are successful with their motion, then the whole 2022 budget again would be thrown out by the minority if they succeed with this particular motion of recession. And you know that the concern about the recession is about the approval of the budget by just one-sided house, being the NPP MPs in the chamber. So that has been discussed earlier in the chamber. And then secondly, there was an issue about the amendment. Yesterday, you recall that the finance minister held the press conference and again indicated to us that he has officially written to the Speaker of Parliament with regards to some amendment being made to the budget. Well, today, the amendment has been laid before the House, but not without disagreement. The minority again raised concerns about the absence of the finance minister. They believe the motion is in the name of the finance minister. He should have been in the chamber to lay the motion, the amendment before the House, but he didn't do that. But let me say that the minority leader, Haruna Iddrisu, was still clear in his mind that in spite of the amendment to the bill, they are still opposed to the e-levy. And e-levy is the most critical issue for the minority in this budget. And so if they are opposing it, what it means is that they are opposing the budget, even though the First Deputy Speaker of Parliament, Jose Wuso, who was in the chamber, ruled that the amendment has been adopted and is been added to the budget for 2022. So that is what has transpired in the chamber. But I have with me the Honorable Telabi here, MP for Lower Manya Krobo constituency. Honorable, thank you very much for your time. Now, I just want to get something clear. The minority has said that what the First Deputy Speaker of Parliament did was unconstitutional. But my concern is if you indeed are convinced in your mind that your leader was right, why did he concede to the ruling that the First Deputy Speaker ruled on the matter?
Well, you see, the fact is that in every situation, even the courts, whatever ruling that is given by whoever, but be the judge, whichever level, once there's a ruling, until you come up with a substantive motion to overturn it, it stands as a ruling. You understand? It's the same thing in Parliament. There has been some ruling. We think it is unfair. It didn't take into consideration the rules of engagement as far as Parliament is concerned. And therefore, we have to come up with a motion, to overturn it, and that is what we are going to do.
But by this motion, I know that we're still for on the laps of the First Deputy Speaker of Parliament. I mean, he has to decide whether to adopt the motion or not.
Yes, and that is where his conduct would come, to play. We want to see whether he is acting as a speaker because or he is deciding for himself and his party.
But we expect him to adopt the motion when it's
certainly. because you are supposed to notify him. You understand? You are supposed, to bring to his attention, and that's what the speaker, the leader, our leader did. Indicating that this is what we are going to do. So that is what is captured in the constitution, in our standing order. Now, information we have indicated to him that this is what we are going to do. So let's see whether he will accept it or not. And then whether he accepts it, as I said, would also, indicate the conduct of, the speaker.
But Honorable, let's talk about the budget itself, because I'm very curious. I mean, you came up with 5 demands.
Yes.
4 have been adopted by the finance.
Well, even the
but the E-levy, there's still a matter of concern. There's those who have said that the minority is being headstrong.
No, not exactly. You see, it is not the minority alone that is against the E-levy. And that must be drummed home seriously. The people of Ghana are against this. Even, NPP stalwarts, Kwame Fianim, is on record. When this budget was read, I'm sure you joined us. Did you listen to the consultants? Those they invited. We didn't invite them. So the experts they brought, not even a single person among those experts indicated or concluded that that E-levy was okay. Everybody was against, the fact that the E-levy was regressive, the fact that we are embarking on a certain process of trying to digitalize. Now, we are encouraging people, we are encouraging paperless, we are encouraging, reducing the use of, hard currency. You understand? Paper currency, whether it be coins or whatever, because of security reasons. You understand? We want to ease, business, the doing of business, as far as our various day-to-day transactions are concerned. And you want to discourage people. Because you see, in the wisdom of the economy, those who came to speak to us, they believe, and I also believe, that this is not an inelastic, sort of situation. Because they're altering. If it is inelastic, then now you can push the people to the wall. But now, what is going to happen is that we are going to have a lot of cash in the system. If the two of us go and purchase something from, this desk right now, and you have your card, or you have e-money, that's the mobile money, on your phone. Once you pay the person, you are going to pay extra 1.75. But then if I have cash, on me, okay, it's part of the risk. If I have cash on me, it means that you are going to pay. I'm going to pay less that amount. So there are going to be options. So it's going to defeat the purpose of digitalization that has been drawn home, so much.
I think I get an understanding about the E-levy, but I know that the estimates we are told will begin tomorrow.
Yes.
If you succeed with your motion of rescission, what does that mean? Does it mean that does it overthrow the budget?
It means you don't have anything for us.
So if you fail, then the E-levy will still be on the table. Are you going to support it at the various companies?
Well, see, we have made our position clear that it is inimical, it's regressive. We don't support it. So at the committee level with the budget estimation, what are you going to do? Well, you see, I mean, at the consideration of the estimate, it's not only about 2022.
Right.
We have to, go into how 2021 allocations were utilized. Okay. You understand? So that's another thing, another area. It's not about just 2022. It's also about, accounting for what monies we gave them, in the previous year. And that's also very, very important. Because you see, if you look at if the Auditor General report is anything to go by, a lot of irregularities. And it is through that scrutiny that we can really, stop some of the infractions that are, ongoing.
Honorable, thank you very much for your time. So Aisha, that's the Member of Parliament for Lower Menya Tobo constituency. One of Tialabi there. Patrick Yaboma, I'm just saying Patrick Yaboma, he is the Vice Chairman on the Finance Committee. I'm hoping to engage him briefly on that because the minority is still convinced that the E-levy should be discarded, the E-levy should be taken from the budget. And so I wanted to engage Patrick Yaboma briefly. Honorable, thank you very much for your time this afternoon. Just to join you. But I know about bullshit, I understand, I get it. But just briefly, your colleagues on the other side, the NDC colleagues, are still clear in their mindset the e-levy is a no-no for them. But some of them have threatened that if the budget is not approved, you can't blame them. They should rather blame the majority. And this was made by the LMLA MP. You were in the chamber. You heard them. I mean, why isn't the majority conceding or being amenable to changes with regards to the percentage on the e-levy?
Well, thank you. Yesterday, you listened to the finance minister. Right. He made a lot of concessions. He said that on the subject of the e-levy, consultations were what? Still ongoing. Okay. So it does not lie in the mouth of anyone to say that, no approval, approve. You understand? We are in this country to ensure that we govern the good people of this country. Well, ensure that we listen to the concerns of their needs and take on board their comments or their concerns. So I believe that it was in that spirit that the Minister of Finance made those concessions and also alluded to the fact that discussions are ongoing.
But someone said the 1.75 drop. I mean, 1%.
If discussions are not held, if the numbers are not well explained to people, how can we arrive at a figure? Understand? So the fiscal and the scenario and the global economy ought to be put before those who are for or against it to understand where we are to make a decision for the good people of this country. So I'm praying that we arrive at a good resolution, ensure that we move this country forward.
Well, they are threatening not to support the budget estimate when it's before the committee. I mean, you are the vice chair of the finance committee. Are you perturbed by the pronouncement of your minority?
The minority has always supported this country.
Well, but this one they say they won't support. They are very clear.
They are not saying they won't support the government for the budget. They have issues with the e-levy. We are talking to them. We are explaining issues to them. We want to arrive at a position where we all agree. That is democracy. So at the end of the day, democracy will win. At the end of the day, Ghana will be victorious. That's all. I don't want to go into numbers with you. You just ambushed me, and that's all I can tell you.
I see, but finally for me, the minority leadership motives of challenging the speaker's decision on, of course, putting aside the approval of the budget by your side of the house. I'm told that the motion will be filed hopefully today or something. Is it something that you're worried about? Do you have the numbers in the house?
I pray that we don't get to that point.
You think you don't get to that point?
Yes, thank you very much.
Well, so Aisha, Patricia Boma, there he is saying that we don't get to the point where the minority will challenge the speaker's decision in order to set aside the approval of the budget. So this is the information you have from Parliament. In fact, I can confirm to you that the minority is seriously working towards the motion so that by the close of day today, they will submit the motion before the House for the debate and subsequently for a vote to be put on the motion to determine whether or not the budget should be approved or should be rejected.
The minority in Parliament has served notice it will push for a parliamentary probe into the conduct of Jose Wusu, which they say led to the chaotic scenes in the chamber last Wednesday. According to the NDC MPs, the conduct of the Bekwai MP undermines the standing orders. The comments comes after the first deputy speaker called for sanctions against the minority MPs captured in the viral video, causing chaos in the House. He spoke on the probe with my colleague Emefa Pao.
I don't know. On the floor, some people have behaved what I will call unruly. I'll call unparliamentary. But when it comes to tensions, I don't see that. When we leave there, we'll discuss those things. When I was leaving the chamber on Wednesday, I was working with some of the minority people, and we're discussing our respective views. There was no tension between us. I am sure that I'm safe in the house. I'm sure that even those who had been seen on videos doing things which I will call unparliamentary have themselves regretted what they did. I'm not sure anybody wants to be cited again, but I have no reason to fear my colleague members of parliament. We have been meeting. The day after my ruling on Wednesday, on the Thursday, as I've just said, I called the leaders of both sides of the House and the directors of Parliament, and we met to discuss some of the things that had happened after I had left the chamber. And that's when I said I learned that actually the whips on both sides have formed committees, including some of the people who were seen in the video doing things which are called unparliamentary. And they have reached consensus that those things will not be repeated. Let me say that since I've been a member of parliament, we have always been cooperative. Now I know we are cooperating quite well. If you recall, the other time when you interviewed me on this program, I said, what I see is that it does appear that the party outside Parliament rather is taking hold and trying to direct how Parliament's behavior should be. That, in my view, is where we're getting it wrong. I think members of Parliament should stand firm and assert themselves. Whatever decision we come to, they will be held responsible.
But the minority insists Jose Owusu should be held responsible for last Wednesday's disturbances in the chamber. Here's MP for Sanerigu and ranking member on the Communication Committee of Parliament, ABA Fuseni.
One of the greatest disservice to Parliament, one of the most bizarre decisions ever taken by a speaker, was for the Mr. Speaker to say that I want 37 members, I acknowledge, but I am counting myself. No speaker has ever counted himself among members of Parliament. It hasn't happened, even if you are a member of Parliament.
So the moment, you did that for a reason.
Aisha, I'm just giving you an example. If you are appointed a referee to a match, in the same match that is being played, then Mr. Speaker is a referee. If you are appointed a referee to a match, in the course of the match, can you change over and be a player?
No, you can't.
Is it possible to be a referee and a player at the same time?
No.
So you see a referee who at a certain stage of the match will chase the ball and blast it to the net, and he himself will blow the whistle, goal, and say, go and pass. How does a speaker, number one, get up and say he's not speaker? So if you are not speaker, the chair you are sitting on is what? If you are not speaker, the decision that you are taking it in your capacity as what? And I was astonished because, Aisha, when Honorable Jose Owusu comes to sit as member of Parliament, let us assume Honorable Bagbin is in the House. When he comes, he sits as a member of Parliament. So he takes his seat on the floor in the chamber.
Yeah.
Okay? Now, when he comes to sit as a speaker, when he's coming in, all of us get up.
Yep.
In reverence of the speaker.
Yep.
He goes to say the prayer for all of us, and we all follow him. So is he saying that if it's Jose Owusu, when he comes up, we shall get up for him? Shall we get up for him? Will he have the opportunity to go and say prayer for all of us to follow him?
As a member of
And when he bangs his gavel on the distance, all of us are enjoying to quiet. Do you think that if it's Jose Owusu, he can tell me to be quiet? You see, so the difference is clear. What he did was illegal. It is well intentioned to set up a team to deal with others. But I told you, Aisha, there are root causes of this problem.
Okay.
This committee, that so-called 20-member committee that they are talking about, has not dealt with the root cause of the problem. And the root cause of the problem is the attitude and the conduct and the misconduct of the speaker.
Okay.
Is the committee going to deal with Mr. Speaker? So what problem are they going to solve? So I'm saying that we may as well go and talk plenty in the same hypocritical things that we do and refuse to address the core issue. Tomorrow it will come back. If we have a speaker who comes back and a speaker who sits there and does this same kind of thing, there'll be trouble in the House.
All right, we'll try and get our my colleague Parker, who's been monitoring events for us in Parliament, to tell us when this probe will begin, if the minority has told him. Let's talk about the fuel brouhaha that has greeted us this week. There's been mixed reactions by some motorists to the announcement of a 15 peso reduction in fuel prices at the Guel fuel pumps. The reduction in the fuel price was the outcome of a meeting between government and transport operators yesterday following their nationwide strike. Importers of what they describe as nuisance taxes bloating the prices of petroleum products. Head of Communications at the Ghana Road Transport Union, Abbas Umoro, says the price reduction is an interim measure as government addresses their concerns over the taxes.